Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside the Pigskin. We're looking a little bit different tonight because the host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth, is actually over in Tampa covering the Detroit Red Wings versus the Tampa Lightning in their last of the regular season games tonight. So you guys are unfortunately stuck with just me. Sorry to say.
Hallelujah.
So let me introduce my great panel. Underneath me is Mr. Mel Farr Jr. Hello, Mr. Mel. How are you tonight?
I'm good. How's everybody doing?
Doing good.
Just
and
peachy.
then next to Mel is Mr. Travis Holmes. Trav likes bacon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Sir, ma'am. I'm all over the place.
Oh boy.
That CRS is kicking in again.
Mm-hmm.
And next to me is Mr. Smokin' Jeremy B. How are you tonight, Smokin'?
I am doing fantastic. Ready to talk some football.
Ready to talk
We're
some
in my wheelhouse.
Oh, your wheelhouse, huh? All right. Well, let's jump right in then. Let's talk about Odell Beckham Jr. signing a 1-year contract with the Baltimore Ravens. $15 million up front and $3 million in incentives. Will that be enough to bring Lamar Jackson back? We'll start with Mr. Mel.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Odell, I don't go there without some type of assurance that he's going to be there. The money's good, but I think I know Odell. There's other opportunities out there if he wants to win. I mean, I know he got a Super Bowl with the Rams. He got hurt in that game. I believe it was in the first half. He got hurt and wasn't able to finish that game. But money's good. Odell's 30. He's 30 years old now, and so he's trying to make as much money as he possibly can. I mean, you could look at it a couple different ways. I mean, he could just be chasing the bag, but I think really that Odell wouldn't. I wouldn't go there if I didn't have an opportunity to put up some big numbers because it's only a 1-year contract. And I think what he wants to do is he wants to parlay this into a longer term deal. Wide receivers can get a longer term deal, past the age of 30, unlike running backs. So I think that the only way I go there if I know that Lamar Jackson is going to be there.
Travis.
I can see kind of both sides of that conversation, I guess. I halfway believe that OBJ is chasing the bag, just because we originally heard all those rumors that he was looking for that guaranteed contract, or receiving one of those contracts, sort of to what I believe it was Godwin originally received. So, if that's truly what took place, and he only went with that 1-year contract, but got a $15 million of the $18 million guaranteed, well, then that feels like chasing the bag, right? I mean, again, it's the Ravens, so they're still one of those top, 5 to top 4 AFC teams. So it's not fully chasing the bag because you truly have a chance of winning, right? Listen, it's not. You're not going to the Cleveland Browns necessarily, but nevertheless, it feels like it may have nothing to do with Lamar, but Lamar may be that extra little piece that can absolutely, kind of put you over the top. So it's quite possible that he heard something behind the scenes or had a conversation with Lamar or anything like that, because that technically would have been a legal process for him. Nothing illegal about two players talking, but nevertheless, it kind of just feels like maybe he was chasing the bag and that just became the best decision for him. And it just so happened to match up with a team that had a need at receiver.
Smokin' Jeremy, what are your thoughts?
I believe Lamar is coming back. He already did a tweet about it saying he's finally got a receiver. I mean, but my only issue is after 2 years of back-to-back ACL injuries, how many steps off the plane before he gets another non-contact injury? Over-unders at 10?
What, games?
No. Steps off the plane.
Steps off the plane. Oh. I got the over. I got the most.
So do I.
I mean, you still have to obviously ask the question of, what is he going to be when he gets back? It's not to say he's going to be, nothing, but in that offense, he doesn't have to be, the best receiver ever, but can he be that guy that's still going to take the top off the defense? Is he going to be that guy that's going to make them, do more than just play them cover 0 or cover 1 and allow Baltimore just to run the ball like they want to run the ball? And if he can be that guy, then I mean, it's for the 15 million and the 15 million guaranteed, but that's the question, because who knows who he is? I mean, he just started being able to work out, 6 months ago?
Exactly. So the Baltimore Ravens GM, Eric DaCosta, said the team is open to drafting a quarterback amid the Lamar standoff. Are they going to take one? We're going to go around the horn the opposite way. So Smoke and Jeremy, you can start on this one.
Whether it'll be at the top of the draft, which I don't think it would be. I think they're going to grab somebody day 2 or day 3 as a developmental to be behind Lamar and learn the system. I just think they can't wait too long. So probably day 3's out. I think day 2's where they go 2nd or 3rd round.
Travis?
I think we're in agreement. They can't not draft the guy. They have to give themselves some sort of an option to, build for the future, no matter what happens with the ongoing negotiations with Lamar. Not to mention, again, his injury issues, which we know he's had, whether or not there are long-term issues or injuries of recklessness or whatever else. You build for what you negotiate as if it's not going to go right, right? And you have to plan with that in mind. So, yeah, whether it's not going to be someone in the first round, but I can absolutely see them drafting someone, 3rd round feels right. Third, someone like a Hooker or the quarterback from Fresno State, forget his name. I'm just thinking of a few guys like that checks out, someone who's going to be around that, 90th to 100 draft spot. That's the time that it kind of feels right. I don't know how many draft picks they have. So trading back absolutely could also be in the realm of possibility for the Ravens in the draft.
Mel, what do you think?
I mean, I see it as a possibility. Not in the first round or even the first day, but possibly 2nd day, 3rd day. Get a mid to late round pick. But you have to understand also. I mean, they're not looking for a backup for Lamar. I don't think they're looking for somebody else, another arm in camp, because the backup to Lamar was a Pro Bowler last year. If you guys remember, he went to the Pro Bowl last year, Tyler Huntley. So, they're looking for another arm in camp. So they're not necessarily looking for somebody to heir apparent to Lamar. They have somebody there right now that they're grooming, in the event that Lamar goes down for a game or two, can come in there and hold down the fort, which obviously he did last year by getting a invitation to the Pro Bowl.
Yep.
You've seen my tinfoil hat theory on this one, though. I still think they could absolutely trade him and just go with the other guys to back up. That's why I'm kind of I can't go all in on it just yet.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. You can't do that.
Okay, let's move along. Let's talk a little bit. Jim Kelly. He says, I hope they find a way to get a star running back to help Josh Allen. Thoughts? And we're going to start with Travis this time.
I mean, this is Jim Kelly who's saying this, so he obviously knows that he's a quarterback. I mean, which is interestingly, he's one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of that team. And if I'm going to trust anybody on that, on knowing the position, it's got to be that guy. But he knows that they've been putting way, way, way too much on Josh Allen's shoulders. They've literally built that entire team around basically throwing the ball as much as possible. And then that may work for some teams. It may work for a Tom Brady on occasion. And it may work for even a Pat Mahomes on occasion, but it won't work every game all the time. And that's the piece that matters. It's not, you want to make sure you have a team that can throw the ball every down, but not necessarily that has to throw the ball every down because they can't run the ball. Even seeing with how Isaiah Pacheco worked for, the Kansas City Chiefs, like you just need to have that. And for the for the Buffalo Bills, I think any reasonable football fan would agree with him. You need to have that running back that you can lean on. You don't have to build the whole team around it, but you need to be able to dominate with that Buffalo weather. You otherwise you will consistently flake out of the playoffs. I mean, honestly, you can't depend on it. You may have one good postseason, here or there, but for the most part, you need to make sure you have all ways you can win in the playoffs.
Mel, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, but the a quarterback's best friend is a strong running game. It doesn't necessarily have to be a star running back, but you have to be committed to running the football. Now, they did pick up Damian Harris from the New England Patriots in free agency. I liked him in Alabama. I think he's a good back. He's been had a little problem with injuries, but I think he's a good running back. He's very durable. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, does a lot of good things for you. But you also have to be committed to running the football. And I know, obviously, Jim is talking about from his days where he had one of the all-time greats in Thurman Thomas. Well, I don't know, how many Thurman Thomases are out there. There's some good backs in the draft, but teams are not willing to spend the draft capital on backs in the first round anymore. So because of perceived injuries, guys get injured. So I think if they just would be committed to running the football, I think that would help a lot more. And when I say committed with the running back running the football, not Josh Allen running the football so much, allowing a lot that would take some pressure off of the passing game because you'd get more guys in the box to stop the running game. That's going to leave these guys open on the outside. That will allow Josh Allen to be more of Josh Allen, just throwing the football and run when he needs to, or use his feet to buy a little extra time, but not necessarily use him, as a running back, as a single wing quarterback, running him all the time.
Jeremy?
He's absolutely right. I mean, Devin Singletary, yes, he's a good talent, but he's not a complete running back. If he's that receiving back that can every now and then pass block for Josh Allen, but he isn't great at pass blocking. He doesn't break every tackler that hits him. I mean, they need a workhorse. They need Bijan Robinson. I would package the next 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick and move up into the top 10 and grab Bijan because they ain't going to get him where they're drafting.
I agree. I think in order for your quarterback to excel and your wide receivers in your passing game, you have to be balanced, because otherwise you become all one-dimensional and you're always relying on it, and they know what you're going to go to, what your strength is. You need a balance. Yes, I agree with you, Mel. Do you need a star running back necessarily? No. But you need someone that can be that workhorse that can get the job done. So we're going to shift a little bit. And yes, we're going to talk a little bit about my Green Bay Packers. But we're going to talk about former All-Pro Green Bay Packer fullback John Brockington passed away at the age of 74. He played for the Packers from 71 to 77 and rushed for 5,024 yards during that stretch. The only players to gain more yards rushing with the Packers are Amon Green. He had 8,322 yards from 2000 to 2009. Jim Taylor, 8,207 yards from 1958 to 66. And Aaron Jones, 5,284 from 2017 to the present. He was the first running back in NFL history to rush for over 1,000 yards in each of his first 3 seasons. He spent part of the 1977 season with Kansas City. Career totals are 5,185 yards, 30 touchdown runs, 4 touchdown catches, 9th overall pick in 1971 from The Ohio State University. In his rookie year in 1971, with the Green Bay Packers, he was named NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year by the Associated Press. He actually played against your dad, Mel.
Yeah.
Thoughts? Mel?
Well, it's obviously condolences to the family. And may God grant them peace and and during this difficult time, peace and understanding during this extremely difficult time. It tells you that the Green Bay hasn't been committed to running the football for a very long time. That's what that tells me. They've been relying on that quarterback for a long time, and they really haven't got a guy who's kind of, who they could kind of depend on year in and year out. It's kind of been just a carousel of different running backs that have been coming in there. They just been kind of just rotating people throughout that position over the years, but the one mainstay has been that quarterback, over the last 20 some odd years. We know two quarterbacks for that franchise, and they have not been committed to running the football. And I think if that's something, if they want to be successful, they need to get back to running the football, being, less one-dimensional, less predictable, not putting so much pressure on that position. They need to start to run the football a lot better and a lot and more effectively if they want to be able to make a deep run into the postseason.
Smoking Jeremy B, your thoughts?
I mean, you're talking a little before my time, but my condolences. And I completely agree about Green Bay not being committed to the run. The last time they used an early pick on a running back, it was that cheeseburger known as Eddie Lacy. But, they've got a nice duo, one of the better duos in the division with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. But I think they overpaid the wrong running back. They probably should have kept the guy that went to Detroit and jettisoned Aaron Jones because he's steadily gotten worse each year.
Travis?
Yes, I think kind of what everybody else already kind of hinted at or alluded to. It's a terrible time. Anytime anyone passes, so absolutely condolences to the family. I do pray that they come together in this time of grieving, time of mourning, but also a time of remembrance. So, it sounds like he had a great lifetime. That's a great story to tell. As much as it's a time of, mourning, it's also a time of remembrance. And that's a great situation when you can say, hey, I am one of the best in my profession at doing this thing, especially in this state, especially in this city, man. That is an awesome story. It's not great for the current crop of running backs or rushing backs in that Green Bay uniform, but nevertheless, as far as his story and as far as his lifetime, hey, good job, kudos, pat on the back. That's a great situation. To Jeremy's point earlier, I guess this actually, I take that back. This kind of sounds like that Buffalo Bills story all over again that we just talked about. They're playing in that same weather, in the same situation. Like, hey, do you have a running back that you can lean on? They kind of do, but are you actually playing where you're giving them the ball, 20 times, 30 times combined a game? Are you actually controlling the clock, or are you just trying to put the game on your quarterback's shoulders and, hopefully they're having a good day that day or not having a bad day that day? And that's a coin flip, unfortunately. So maybe Green Bay can get back to that in his memory.
Jeremy, this is a little side note. I went to school with Jamal Williams' mother.
Oh, nice.
She ran track at UCLA from East St. Louis. Nicole Williams, and she could go.
Nice. Well, I agree. My condolences, obviously, to the Brockington family. But as Green Bay has done good with quarterbacks, they haven't done as good with running backs. Unlike Detroit, who, Barry Sanders. I mean, I think
Billy Sims.
Yep. I mean, there are some
Mel
teams
Farr.
that just do one.
Had to go there.
Yes, you did.
Taylor.
I said Mel Farr.
It's funny. Detroit's done well with everything. You guys just can't put it together.
And if you want to go back in history, you can talk about one of the greatest running backs to ever play the game that doesn't get as much recognition as everybody does, but his name is on the best running back in college award. That's Doak Walker. He was a Lion too, and a part of those championships with Bobby Lane.
That's a good call out.
Nice. Okay, one last topic. we're going to talk about our favorite team, the Washington Commanders, who are up for sale. How can we not talk about them? Dan Snyder bought that team back in 1999 for $750 million. He's probably going to get $6.05 billion from the Josh Harris Group, which includes Magic Johnson and billionaire Mitchell Relps. Josh Harris also owns the New Jersey Devils and the Philadelphia 76ers.
And according to what I saw by Adam Schefter, the bid has been accepted.
Ooh.
Which means the paperwork has to have to go through the NFL office.
Yeah, but they said it's been accepted, but it's still like non-contingent or something. There's still like a wiggle room to get out.
Right. Until the paperwork actually hits the NFL office and is approved by the commissioner and then the other team owners. I can
slide in there with a bid right now.
Yeah, you can.
Go for it, Mel. Go
for it, Mel. Get it.
I know you had it like that, Mel.
Say this is a group we can all put in a buck or two, you know.
I'll help you. Yeah, they said it's a non-exclusive deal. It's fully financed but not signed, meaning another group could still come in and buy the team. So I don't know what that means. I don't sleep well tonight.
You're thinking about it, huh? You still thinking about it?
This feels like some weird negotiating tool.
Yeah, I don't sleep well tonight. If it's if it's me, I'm not sleeping good.
Yeah. The other one that doesn't want anything to do with it, and it's funny because he wants an NFL team. So he's actually every time ones came up for sale, he's contacted every owner. But he wouldn't. But he didn't want to contact Daniel Snyder, and that's Jeff Bezos.
That's because didn't he hire a group to research them? And I'm guessing they said, don't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Like I said, they probably saw those 50,000 emails that we didn't get to see, outside of the 1,500 by Jeff Gruden.
Yeah, I mean, it was the Washington Post, right? And aren't they the ones that...
Yeah.
So, yeah. Snyder wasn't real happy with him at all. I mean, I guess if he offered him $10 billion, I guess he'd probably take it, but begrudgingly, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that was part of my parting shots. Absolutely. I didn't wish this on any. I couldn't wish this on any worse person. Like in the words of the famous Dave Chappelle, I wish all the bad things in life happened to you and only you. Like this, as much as I wanted to make it a funny thing, I couldn't even make it a funny thing. Snyder's done so many bad things, and throughout the history of his ownership, he's just been that bad. Forget about being that bad of our owner. He's just been that bad of a human, and throughout his entire ownership, and that is how bad you have to be to lose your team as an NFL owner. That's literally how difficult it is to lose the ability to own an NFL franchise. Is that you have to be just that bad and still mess with the money. And have government agencies looking into you and, getting in the way of, potentially having antitrust violations come against the league before they finally tell you to get out the paint. Oof. Yes, man. I'm happy. It seems to be, getting close to wrapping up, and maybe that team can have, some sense of normalcy or, some good fortunes moving forward.
What do you think, Jeremy?
I really don't have much to say on it. I mean, he pretty much covered the whole thing in one shot.
Okay, so what do we feel about
great return on investment? That's for certain.
Yeah, for Snyder, you bet. Considering he's gotten all that trouble, going from $750 million to $6.05 billion.
Yeah, I mean. Money's going to be the least of his work. I mean, not like he was worrying about it before, but I mean, that's the last thing he has to worry about is money.
This is like that owner. This is the owner of the basketball franchise. I forget his name. Who had to sell his team?
Donald Sterling.
Donald Sterling. Goodness gracious, this felt like that. Like everybody's like, yeah, he had to sell it. Yeah, he only had to sell it for all this extra money. Like that's the worst thing that can happen to someone who has that much money in life, is that they're just going to make billions and billions of dollars. Like that's their worst situation.
Yeah, that's punishment. I'd love to have punishment like that.
Okay, so let's move on over to the Denver Broncos and Elway moving on from the Broncos after a year as a consultant. How do you feel about that, Travis?
Man, I didn't even know that happened. And so you legitimately are catching me live on that one. That makes, but it really makes sense. And I say this because I felt this way for a while. Like it's the biggest part about having someone who's a former player as in the role of being an executive, because you almost always what you see is that the person who's filling that role, they always try to find themselves in whatever the players that they're evaluating, right? So he's this Hall of Fame incredible quarterback, and he's trying to find that type of guy to fill that role, and that's the main role. That's the main spot that he's struggled in identifying, is filling that quarterback role with someone who's like him. I mean, he got Peyton Manning, because that was a free agent, basically a sniper that he paid and got him in there for a year, and even then that was Peyton falling off a cliff, Peyton. But from that point on, he hasn't been able to find that guy, and not by lack of trying, he just hasn't been able to. So now he's gone from being the executive to basically consulting to finally just moving out because it doesn't seem to be working. And it's probably the best thing he can do for himself, just to salvage, to save his the good graces, I guess, the grace from the organization, from the fans and everyone else, to not look too bad and have everyone just out there in the streets hating him, like the Jaguars fans felt about Tom Coughlin after some time.
Mel, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, when I saw that, I wasn't surprised. And I think, for his legacy's sake, I think that's a good move for him. Peyton Manning fell in his lap, and like Travis said, that was a falling off a cliff, Peyton Manning, but he still was able to get you to two Super Bowls and win one. So that was great. But ever since then, he's had a very difficult time finding someone at the most important position on the football team, and that's that quarterback. He's had a very difficult time identifying that talent. And, so he took a step back from the front office position to become a consultant. And I think now that you have the new ownership in there as well, I think it makes sense because, he was part of the old regime with, when Pat Bowlen's favorite people and the Bowlen family. Now you have new blood in there with the Walton Penner group in there now. I think it just makes sense for him to leave because, obviously, John wasn't someone that they handpicked or that they chose. They kind of inherited him. So it makes more sense for him to do that and ride off in the sunset and, kind of dust off his legacy, forget about the failures of the last number of seasons and not being able to find somebody to hold down that position, but just kind of, rest on the laurels of who he is. And, he's John Elway and what he did for that franchise. I mean, he's revered in that state. So, it gives him an opportunity to go back and do some of the things that he wants to do. He's 60 some odd years old. It's time for him to kick back and relax and enjoy life.
Smoking Jeremy B, your thoughts?
The writing was on the wall when they made him step down as president of operations once the new group got him in there. Plus, every QB he selected in how many first rounds? Horrible. The only one that won a playoff game was Tim Tebow. And he did not have a good completion percentage. He was ran out of the NFL for his Christian beliefs, but that's another story.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, nothing to do with the fact that he couldn't throw the ball very well.
He couldn't throw the ball very well, but he was a gamer, and he led that team to victories. He won 5 out of 6 games in a row.
I mean, I'm a Tim Tebow fan. I believe, a guy like that, you got to figure out a way to make it work. I mean, I think there's a way to have made Tim Tebow work for 3 or 4 years. It wasn't going to last forever. To playing the way that he played wasn't going to last forever. But you could have got 4, 5, 6 years out of him or more.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're being very generous with those years. Mel went from went from 2 to 3 to 3 to 4 to 4 to 6.
The guy's a winner. He's not short. He's not a guy that's vertically challenged. I think he's a winner. He's a great team guy. Yeah, he wasn't very accurate, but hey, let's work on those mechanics, man. Let's work on. That's why you got coaches. Coach him up. That's what you get paid to do. Coach him up and let's go.
Exactly.
Make him better. Let's build this team around him. I think there's a way that could have been done, but once you get bounced around, once you get cut once, it's easier for somebody else to cut you. It's real easy. Oh, you've been cut already. We're gonna cut you again. I mean, it makes it real easy.
I think it's crazy that he was able to win with Josh McDaniels as his head coach.
Frankly, Tim Tebow is Tim Tebow is Gardner Minshew, but a Christian. That's all he is, man. I'm sorry, but
Gardner Minshew didn't win a national championship, nor did he win the Heisman Trophy.
Hey, that team around Tim Tebow was also just happened to be incredible.
Does not have a 70s porn star mustache either.
That Florida Gators team had murderers and pastors and everybody else.
Look, I'm a firm believer, and I said this when I was at UCLA. You got to have some guys with some rap sheets. That was the difference between us and USC. They always had some guys on their team with some questionable backgrounds. You got to have some guys that have some. Now we had our fair share of guys that I didn't realize at the time, but they had some questionable backgrounds and had a little rap sheet. But you got to have some guys. You got to have some of them guys, man.
You got to have some dogs.
You got to have some dogs, man. You got to have some dogs. There's no question about it. You can't have all choir boys. Let's just put it like that.
So Florida was that big rivalry from back in the late 90s, early 2000s, between Miami and Notre Dame. They were the best of both of those schools, the convicts and the Catholics.
Well, I had one. I don't know about
yeah.
Come on, that was good.
Yeah. All right. So unfortunately, I'm a Jags fan, and we obviously we brought that chaos into our training camp because why not?
I saw him play.
So unfortunately, I'm a fan of the team before I'm a fan of Tim Tebow, and so I'm just, hey, is he a good quarterback or not? He may have been a potential good quarterback for that team, for the Broncos, but that's not to say he was actually a good quarterback, moving forward past those, first 2 seasons. I just felt like the more tape got out on him, the more it was going to be problematic for him moving forward, and I still kind of feel like that's kind of what happened.
I think they just gave up on him too quick, man. Everybody's always looking at, at their neighbor's yard. I mean, sometimes you just gotta, the grass isn't always greener on the other side of the fence. Sometimes you just gotta, water and fertilize and take care of your grass, and instead of looking at the neighbor's grass, because it could be an illusion. It could be field turf. You don't know.
Good points. Good points. Okay, so now on to another little topic here. Top NFL draft prospect Jalen Carter is declining to visit any team selecting outside the top 10 in the 2023 NFL draft. His agent said, "I'm confident Jalen will go in the top 10. He's a good person, a family man, loves football, and is a generational talent." What do you guys feel about him not visiting anybody that's not picking in the top 10? Smoking Jeremy B., we'll start with you.
Well, in all actuality, it was his agent that are refusing the visits for outside the top 10. So that's because he's trying to get him paid. And I get it, because if I'm getting 10%, yeah, he's a top 10 prospect. He's a generational talent. He's going to be the best guy since sliced bread. That's what I'd be saying. I'd sell him to everybody in that top 10 because the money's different. Every million he loses is 10% he don't get.
Travis?
That's fair. He has one of the best agents in the NFL, Drew Rosenhaus, goodness gracious. And he's doing what he's supposed to do. He's kind of giving him that Deion Sanders treatment. Oh, no. If you're not in the top 10, if you're not trading into the top 10, then we don't need to do business with you, basically. And he stated that he's received the confirmation from multiple teams in the top 10 that they were going to take him if he was there. Now, whether or not that's a true statement that's being provided to him from those teams. Who knows? But yeah, he's absolutely playing with fire, because if that does take place and he's falling down draft boards, then so be it. But anyone who knows anything about defensive line play knows that he is legitimately a top 3 to top 4 talent in the NFL draft. Like, he was better than the number 1 draft pick who was drafted last year, and all those other Georgia defenders they've had that have been drafted in the top 10. He was better than all those guys, and we knew that last year. So we know he has some off the field issues and things of that nature, but nevertheless, if we're just talking about the turning on the tape and looking at the player, this guy is absolutely one of the top, if not the top player in the draft, and his agent would be right to kind of have to play that game.
Mel, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, before the college season ended, this guy was the number 1 on everybody's board as far as prospects for the 2023 draft. Now, regardless of whether or not he had this trouble or not, he probably would not have been the first person taken off the board, because he doesn't play the most important position. But if it were a team that was not willing to trade out of that position and really wanted to shore up their defense, or needed to shore up their defense with a generational type talent, he would definitely be the first guy taken off the board. No, he's doing the exact right thing, and obviously he's doing what his agent is telling him to do. His agent's smart; he knows what's going on. He's been doing this for a very long time. All of his legal troubles are behind him. Everything is behind him now. You know, it was an unfortunate situation that came up around the time when he was at the combine. All that's behind him now. He's accepted responsibility, done, pleaded it out, and now all he has to do is worry about football. Look, he's a young guy. He made a mistake. All right, he made a mistake, and who of us here has not made a mistake when we were young? And so, unfortunately, it may cost him a draft spot or 2. But yeah, I don't see him falling down past number 10, because somebody's gonna realize that, hey man, we have an opportunity to get a generational talent, the guy who's number 1 on our board, and we have an opportunity to get him at 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever. I mean, the Detroit Lions could definitely use somebody like that up there. Without question, we please let him fall. We could use somebody like that. That's a generational talent, and they're doing great things in Detroit. And players are wanting to go play in Detroit. They want to go play for our coach up there. So yeah, please let him fall down. I know we need some other help with DBs and stuff like that, but hell, I'd love to have that kind of guy. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now let's talk about generational talents who hated practice, and I'm not talking about Allen Iverson. Gosh. Lawrence Thomas, Richard Dent, Dick Butkus, all of those guys, they hated practice. They hated it. They wouldn't try in practice, but guess what? They wrecked people's hearts on the field.
Well, I mean,
ask Joe Theismann about LT.
Yeah, I don't think practice has been a problem for him. And I'm a firm believer in you play like you practice. I mean, you gotta practice hard. I mean, and to play this game, you do have to like practice. Because if you don't like the preparation part of it, then you'll never get an opportunity to see Sunday if you don't like the preparation part.
Right, but you're also talking about the difference between college and pro too.
But you're also
getting paid for it.
About generational talent, so too. That's a different. That's the difference. But I can tell you, Michael Jordan liked to practice.
Michael Jordan was a different animal.
Kobe Bryant, he liked to practice.
Yep.
Shaq, maybe not so much.
You can even name guys who play his position, like Aaron Donald. Loves the workout, loves the practice. That's a very similar comparison. Hey, so to play that position, that's that high impact position like that, also, and take those hits. You're going to need to like the sport, like to practice.
You gotta like to practice. You gotta like to want to get better. Lawrence Hill is just physically gifted. Richard Dent, obviously, really physically gifted. And this kid here is physically gifted as well. But in order to get the maximum out of your God-given potential, you got to put in that work, man. You got to put that work in.
Right? I think we have the coaching staff to push them.
There's no question about it. They do a very good job with young players, and guys seem to they rally around Coach Campbell. Hey, I'm all in. I'm all in. Kneecap bite. I'm all in.
I'm just noting that the money's different these days, and these young cats are different these days. Hey, man, you see guys retiring at 30 years old, 29 years old, and may not even make it to the end of that second contract. So like I can understand it from multiple vantage points. Like you want to make sure the guy that I'm drafting is the guy who I'm going to get a full second contract out of. I have him under contract under team control for essentially 8 years. Yeah, that matters. So you want to make sure the guy is in it for the long haul and that he loves the game.
There's no question about it. I mean, obviously he's in it for the long haul and he loves the game. He's probably taking a pay cut to go to the NFL.
With NILs, yes.
He's probably taking a pay cut. Coming from Georgia, I'm sure he's taking a pay cut. So yeah, he loves the game. But you're right, though, Travis. You're right, though. That's the thing that I see about these young players. You look at some of these players, and I was just looking at Zion Williamson. He's talking about he's not going to play till he feels like Zion again. What does that mean? I mean, what does that mean? These guys get that money, and they just sit back, man. They say,
flake.
Well, forget about it.
They flake
about it. Some other guys are wired differently. You look at a guy like LeBron James, Kobe Bryant. They're wired differently. They wanted their money, but at the same time, these guys wanted to win. They wanted to be difference makers. They wanted to go down in history. Zion, it just seems like he just wants to cash a check. I mean, you do have to be concerned with a lot of these players now. And you're going to find that also in college too, with these kids getting that NIL money. Are they going to be as hungry?
Well, that's an interesting one though, because I saw it was one of those podcasts with the national champion, the March Madness champions, and they were talking about how the NIL money has changed women's basketball. And I know this is a football show. Sorry, I'm just commenting on the fact that that's what they said. They're like, no, we're going to take as long as possible in college playing women's basketball because we literally are taking a pay cut going to the WNBA because we're making millions and we're going to go from making millions to make.
Only a handful of players get to make the max salary, which is like $200,000 or something like that. There's only a few players that get to make that kind of money. Most of them don't make that kind of money. Yeah, these players with the NIL deals, man, they're making $300,000-$500,000. Yeah. But
so apparently for the women's sports, it's been life changing.
They have to stay in school for 4 years. They don't have the opportunity to opt out and come out early.
I know this is off topic, but I mean it's to the topic you guys are saying. The reason why they make less money is there isn't as much sponsorship money. Why? The viewership is down. So until we start watching the WNBA more and bring that viewership up, the sponsorships won't go up. So
the crazy thing is we just got done with the championship and their draft was already and nobody, I really didn't know about it. And their draft was like Monday. I mean, the draft is a week after the season ends, the college season ends. So that's a crazy thing. And it's kind of hard. They don't do a very good job of advertising. Marketing. Yeah, they don't. They do a very poor job of marketing it. Very poor job of marketing the game.
Well, and one of the things
I watch the girls' college basketball. I do watch it.
Mm-hmm. I do watch that too. All of us do. All of us are sports fans. Go.
Isn't it true that to get into the NBA for the draft, you have to be 22 years old for females, and whereas the guys, they can be 19. There's a difference in age, I believe, as well.
I think it's either a year or two older, so I think it's like at least 21. I think they got to do 3 years. Yeah, so it's 21 to get in.
I don't know. I mean, most of them do 4 years.
All of them. You very rare do you hear about a talent from college and go into the WNBA as a junior. It's very rare. Yeah, I think maybe 2 each draft, maybe 3.
So I didn't mean to get us on a basketball tangent. I was just focusing on the NIL money being life-changing in the women's basketball versus, and I know it was technically a joke because, of course, we're not being paid to play college football, even though it's legal nowadays. So I guess we can talk about it now. Yay! It's all fine that people are being paid money to do what they've always been paid money to do in college.
My only issue with him only visiting people that are picking in the top 10 is, are you limiting yourself? Because if you're a generational talent, there might be a team that really needs you that would pick up to get you or trade up to get your pick if you are that good and you impress them. That's my only.
Yeah.
I don't plan on being on the board.
I mean, does your game tape change because I interviewed well? I mean, I'm going to be real. Like, does my game tape that's already done? You know, I'm already done playing this past season. Is that going to change any because I spoke well in my interview?
No, but if you already have issues in your background, maybe what you say might change a little bit. It might.
No?
And it might be a personality thing too. Like they might then say, "Oh yeah, we're not trading up." But maybe we are trading up. Maybe, things work. I don't know. I'm just saying, why limit yourself?
Let's go back to that 2009 draft when a certain quarterback found out that he would go 1 overall and didn't want to go to Detroit and went back in school. And then because of the new rookie cap, cost himself $100 million in Sam Bradford.
I mean, you're not wrong. I can't see a future that.
I mean, because
that Carter gets drafted past Philadelphia.
Sam Bradford was like one of the last ones to get it. I thought Cam was the first.
He was. Bradford was the last one.
Yeah, I thought he was the last one to get the big money.
No, he cost himself $100 million.
He went number 1 overall, but I thought Cam was the first one to get that was on that. That
was all in the same draft, wasn't it? 2010. Yeah, but I'm just saying, he'd have been the first quarterback overall in 2009.
He still was the first overall quarterback when he got drafted, if I'm not mistaken.
Bradford? No.
Yeah.
No. Because the next year was 2010, and that was when Cam was drafted, right? When he went 1 overall on the new cap? Yeah, I'm just saying. Because he ended up going to the Rams.
When he did that was not very smart.
Right.
Okay. Well, it's time for our parting shots.
Ooh.
Travis.
Sam Bradford went number 1.
Did he? Okay. It still was 2010.
He was the last hurrah. He was the last one.
Yeah, I thought he was the last one. He went number 1.
I thought he was too. I remember someone talking about his career contract numbers, and all I remember was that his was up there.
He made big money. Yeah, he made big money.
So yeah, my parting shot, I think we already kind of hinted. I hinted at that earlier. Was Dan Snyder and just how garbage of a human being this man was, and it was so much so that I read like 3 articles. I caught myself in just a loop of reading these different articles about him earlier today, and I'm like, I didn't even know he was this bad of a person. And I'm not even talking about the stuff that the main things that we easily know about, like the lawsuit with the cheerleaders, where he was videotaping them without their consent, that we found out 12 years later about because he was trying to make a Girls Gone Wild video without their permission. And I'm talking about the fact that he's the reason we pay to go to see training camp. Like, I didn't even know that. Like, he was the first NFL owner to charge for fans to go and see training camp, and the first one to charge for parking. I didn't even know that was a thing. He began that, and everybody else picked up on it. He's the reason. Goodness gracious, he filed a lawsuit against over 100 of the Commander season ticket holders because during the 2008 collapse, because they couldn't keep up with their payments, and he wouldn't allow them out of the contract. So he sued them for $4 million and there was this one lady who was like a 75-year-old grandma who he just wouldn't allow her out of the contract, and he still went through and took that last $65,000 and made her go and file for bankruptcy. And I'm just like, this is a wild boy. On top of the stuff that we know, just the basic things that we know, and I'm just like, okay, Dan. And then let's add the fact that he was hiding money from the NFL, and that was the camel that broke the straws back after having the different House committees make him come in to testify, where he just said, I don't recall for over 100 times. Hey man, get out the paint. It's about time. Good job finally doing the right thing and being forced to after 20 years of just chaos with this ownership group. But goodness gracious, NFL, get y'all stuff together.
Mel, your parting shot.
I hadn't even thought of one. Go to Smoking Jeremy. Let me come back.
Okay, Smoking Jeremy.
All right, Odell Beckham Jr. gets that 1 year, $15 million deal. I think that's pretty amazing for him, considering that the entire wide receiver core of the Detroit Lions, which is 8 deep if you include the practice squad, is at $14,756,872 combined. That being said, shout out to Scott Morganroth, who's there at the game. I hope you got to spend time with Ken Cal and the boys. Have a great day, bud.
Okay, Mel.
Yeah, he'd be better off going to the. Is Ken Cal, is he part of the baseball team? Because he'd be better off going to a baseball game, watch the Rays while he's out there sitting doing historic things. But it's funny how when you look at these teams and you look how one front office views a talent versus how the next front office coming in views a talent. You look at what happened. You guys were talking about it earlier with Jeff Okudah, and I was talking to my brother. I'm like, man, they traded him for a 5th round draft pick. I mean, that's like really just like giving him away.
And they did. Yeah, I said the same thing.
He was I want to say he was a top 3 pick. I want to say they picked him number 3 overall. So at one particular time, somebody thought he had some talent. One regime thought he had some talent. New regime comes in, says, man, this guy's not quite good enough. We're going to get rid of him for a 5th round draft pick. And it just kind of shows you what happens to a franchise when you constantly have that turnover in either your front office personnel or your coaching staff. And typically the coaching staff, the head coach, and the front office people are kind of joined at the hip. Unless you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, they just kind of do the same thing over and over and over again. That's why it's key to have some type of continuity within your front office so that you're constantly drafting the same type of guys, that you have a philosophy. And see, Detroit needs to build an identity, and they need to stick to it. They can't change just because this team won the Super Bowl and they did it this way, or that team won the Super Bowl and they did it this way. They have to have their own identity. Pittsburgh is not going to change their identity. They're going to play good defense, and they're going to run the football. That's what they want to do. They want to establish the running game, and they want to play good defense. Detroit, we've gone for the run and shoot with Wayne Fonz. Then we had Bobby Ross come in, where we had big old boys, 350-pound offensive linemen. Then you change from that, you go to the West Coast system where they want more nimble offensive linemen. So you get rid of all the 300-pounders that you just drafted in the top 3 rounds, and you get you some guys at 280, 285 pounds that can move a little bit. You just got to have some continuity in your front office. Otherwise, you're not retooling, you're not reloading. You're doing a complete overhaul.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're doing a tear down. You're buying something, tearing it down, and building it up from the bottom. You just can't continue to do that. That's why they've had so much trouble getting to the point of where they are right now, because it just has not been that consistency in the front office and in the coaching, because you're always getting somebody different. You're always trying to go to the next hot guy, this hot guy. And, Dan Campbell, he came out of nowhere, and really he's been a godsend, to be honest with you. He's been a godsend since the daughter has taken over, brought Chris Spielman in there in the front office. You can kind of see what type of identity that they want to have. They want to be tough, hard-nosed. They want to play defense. They want to run football. They want to be physical. They want to hit you in the mouth. And, if that doesn't work, they want to bite your kneecaps. So I'm happy to see what they're doing. But it just kind of shows you what happens when you go from one regime to another regime, where, this regime highly regards the talent. And then the next guy comes in there and they look at him like, man, well, this guy here, man, he can't play.
Okay. Jeremy, you going to say anything or no? I thought you.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned about him being that top 3 pick in that trade, because I agree with you. But it wasn't just the Lions that thought he was a top 3 pick. He was a top.
Everybody did.
It was a top 3 pick by every scouting person or draft prognosticator out there, that he was that good. His combine numbers was second only to one other guy for the athleticism. His relative athletic score that year was a 9.79. It was the second highest of all the corners. The only guy who had higher, but is a horrible corner, was Greedy Williams. There's a reason why that kid's been a dime back since he was drafted in the NFL.
I got to ask you, all you Detroit Lion fans, is Dan Campbell so much better than Jim Caldwell?
Yes.
I won't.
I'm the only reason why
no.
I say yes.
You all seem to be in heavy agreement that this was that Dan is a godsend. And I'm like, well, it felt like he's just taking you guys back to where you already were.
Motivational wise,
Jeff Caldwell is not our coach, so we can't really speak on that. I would have loved for him to still be our coach, Caldwell. I liked him, Caldwell. I did. I mean, he did a great job, but they got rid of him a couple coaches ago, right?
Yeah, well, we went 2 regimes back, was Jim Caldwell. Jim Caldwell was fired by Matt Patricia's buddy, Bob Quinn. Yeah. That being said, Bob Quinn let him go because 9-7 and losing in the playoffs wasn't good enough, right? Did we have any season with Matt Patricia where they won 9 games?
No, weren't even close to it.
No, the closest we got was 6th, year 1. And that was with everybody the previous regime drafted being jettisoned out quickly.
Yeah, I'd love to have Caldwell, but I mean that's not the hand that we're
dealt. Caldwell himself even said he deserved to be fired because he didn't do enough in the playoffs for the Lions when he was fired.
That's what a winner says, though. That's something a winner would say, right?
Yeah, it is, but I'm just saying. He was a great coach for the time. He was handed a Lamborghini of a defense that by the end of his tenure was a Yugo. Don't tell me it wasn't. Because you don't go from a historically great number 1 rushing defense in the NFL, averaging 59.6 rushing yards against for a 16-game season, to giving up 132 in 4 years.
Okay. I have no dog in this fight. I'm just a lonely Jags fan on the side, just watching what you guys are going through.
It's not just what Dan Campbell brought in. It's the people he put around him to give him a chance to be successful. Because a newer coach needs better assistants with more experience. And he had that his first year. And he learned that it wasn't so great having those guys. And Dom Capers and Anthony Lynn left after year 1. And the defense actually got better.
Okay, so my parting shot, I'm going to go to one of the other NFC teams because I'm not a Lions fan like you guys. I'm going to go to my Packers, of course. Why not? So who do we blame in the Packers-Jets Rodgers saga? I'm going to say Rodgers.
Rodgers.
Here's the reason. They almost had the trade done before he comes out and starts talking on Pat McAfee's show saying, I was 90% about ready to retire. That's telling you he is so close that he's probably only going to play 1 more year, which is not what the Jets want to hear if they're going to give up what Green Bay is asking for because he's an MVP player. So, Aaron, as much as I like you as a quarterback, I am not happy with you right now. Keep your mouth shut. I don't know where you're going to end up playing next year. This is interesting, this drama, this long saga.
He's going to be holding a clipboard for your Green Bay Packers.
He very well could be on the sideline.
This dude is the main person on the Housewives of Green Bay or whatever other show. He is such a messy. He is so messy, and it seems purposeful. Like it seems personal. Like he really does not like the organization right now. Like it's purposeful.
Yep. He's been pissed ever since they drafted Love. He's felt disrespected, and
like a scorned woman.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Aaron Rodgers likes to be in the limelight, and anytime a quarterback gets into the limelight, he has to take it back. That's what it's all about. He's Aaron Rodgers, and he's upset with management for picking his successor.
I agree. with that, let's go around the horn, see how you can get a hold of everybody. Jeremy, how can we get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of me on the SouthFloridaTribune.com under the Motor City Tribune heading with the list of authors. You can also find me on Kneecap Biting with Smoking Jeremy B, which is my YouTube channel, which during the off season I do 2 shows on Wednesday and Friday. You will also find me on Sideline Sports on the Gauntlet on Fridays going forward, because tonight was a special episode with their 100th episode, and I want to give them their shout out. And you can also find me anytime right here on the South Florida Tribune channel, because Scott loves to throw me in here.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
But I have to head out. I have an emergency going on. So have a
problem.
good one.
Thank you. Travis, how can we get a hold of you?
You can find me on Twitter at TravSliceBacon. You can find me here every week during the season and bi-weekly in the off season inside the pigskin. You can find me at every home Jaguars game and some away games. Fingers crossed this upcoming season for A7BN Sports. And you can find me on Facebook and Instagram, Travis D. Holmes. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And Mel, how can we get a hold of you?
Find me on all the social media at Mel Farr Jr., whether it's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And find out what we have going on for the youth at melfar.org.
That red subscribe button, hit it, like it, share it. South Florida Tribune on YouTube. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. If you like this show, if you want to advertise, if you want to sponsor us, call Scott 954-304-4941. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. And you can always email us if you have show ideas or maybe want to be a guest at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. I think we're going to be back next week because I think we're going to do a preview for the NFL draft, because we're going to take the NFL draft and watch it. So we will see you next week, and Scott will be back in his regular shoes. I won't have to fill those big shoes next week. But thank you very much for joining us. I want to thank all the people that were commenting in the chat room. It was Felicity, Joshua, Snowman, Ralph Williams, Joshua Bernstein. Thank you guys for all commenting on the show. We look forward to seeing you next week. Everybody have a great week.